Hello, everybody. This is Brandon again. Just want to do a little introductory to structured text programming in Studio 5000. So throughout the PLC classes here at Ivy Tech, we've done a lot with ladder logic, which is going to be pretty much the industry standard that you're going to come across in a lot of the factories you'll be going to work at. But I at least wanted to make a video or two going over structured text and the similarities with ladder logic, and just kind of make a video demonstrating how structured text can be used and how it's used the same as ladder logic. So this one, I'm just going to make a really super simple program. As you know, we have our Amatrol suitcase trainers. And I went ahead and aliased a few of my tags, physical tags, with bits to make it a little bit easier on the structured text. So what I've done, and I'll just go through this and show you really quickly, is if you go into your controller tags and you can kind of view them the way they are here. I'm just going to minimize everything down to the bare minimum. So you'll see down here, I have a couple of tags. One is green PB, red switch, green light, green push button light, yellow light, and green PB2. So I've kind of given some of the inputs, the physical inputs, these tags that are aliased to those inputs. If you actually go into edit tags, you can see them. So you can see right here, the name green push button is aliased for local one input data.0. So now when we're doing our structured text, we can simply just type in green PB. We can even do that in our ladder logic, and it will auto-fill in with this address. And I'll demonstrate that in the ladder logic part of this as well. But I want to show you how I've done it. So we start out in monitor tags, and you can see them. If you go to your edit tags, and I've purposely left one out so I can show you kind of how it's done. And notice green push button, red switch, D00 green, D01 green push button, D02 yellow. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do D03 red. So I purposely saved that one for this. We're going to go into edit tags, and we're just going to go, we know that our D03, the red switch light, is our local one output data.3. So see the red switch, D03 red switch. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to right click on that, and then I'm going to hit new tag, which aliases this output. And then here, I'm going to give it a tag name, and we're just going to do like we did with these other ones. We're just going to call it red switch underscore light. So we know it's the output for it. And then you just click off of it to save, and you can see the base tag, what it's an alias for. I left the description there. It's kind of redundant, but that's how you alias a tag. It makes it a lot easier for you in the long run when you're building programs, if you just want to start typing and then hit enter. So I know I've been teaching you guys long form forever for the addressing. I do that strategically for a reason. And that reason being that you learn the basics. You learn the foundational basics first. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and start building our ladder logic and our structured text subroutines below our main routine. So we're going to do like we do in a lot of our programs. We're going to use our main routine to enable and disable each subroutine. And the program we're going to build is a super basic. We're going to use one of the green push buttons, green PB. We're going to use this to turn on D00, which is our green light. And then we're going to use green PB2 to turn it off. So in ladder logic, we're just going to use a latch and then an unlatch. And we're going to use one push button to latch the light on, and we're going to use one to unlatch it. Then I'm going to design a structured text routine that when that one's enabled, it's going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to show you how to build that structured text to do the exact same thing as the latch and unlatch using two separate push buttons. So we're going to go ahead and go into our main routine, and we're just going to use our red selector switch to enable and disable each subroutine. So first thing we need to do is we need to create those subroutines under our main routine. So if you just right click on main program add, we're going to do new routine. And the first one we're going to do is a ladder one. So we're just going to select ladder diagram. And then we're just going to call it ladder test. Okay, and notice ladder test is now a subroutine below your main routine. Then we're going to do the same thing, new routine, and then we're going to make this one structured text. And then we're just going to call it ST test. Sorry, I got pulled away for a second. But yeah, we created our subroutines back to where we were, created the subroutines. We have ladder test and structured text test. So what we're going to do is, like I said earlier, we are going to make the exact same program, and we are going to enable each subroutine individually and then verify that it works the way it's supposed to work. Now, with the structured text one, you're not necessarily going to be able to see it enabling or disabling when it's on the structured text, but in the ladder logic, you'll be able to see it. We can watch it through the controller tags as it's running as well when the structured text subroutine is enabled. So the very first thing we want to do now that we have our subroutines is we want to go into our main routine. And this is where we're going to want to put our JSRs to be able to switch between the two subroutines. So what we're going to do here, just double click end, and then we're going to add in, I guess we'll do normally closed on this one, and then do a normally open on this one. And these ones are, now remember how I did the aliasing for the red switch? So check this out. Start typing, look at that, red switch. So now we have our red switch. We just started typing it. Again, red switch, hit enter, boom. That's the joys of aliasing to those addresses. So now we have our red switch normally closed and our red switch normally open. Now we need to get our JSRs in there. So we're going to go over to program control. And we're going to put our JSRs in. So I'm just going to do Control C, Control V. And when red switch is off, we are going to do our ladder. And when our red switch is on, we are going to do structured text. And we'll just get these question marks out of here. We're just doing a basic JSR. So once we get these cleared out, parameter. Okay. So now we can switch between our red switch off, red switch on, red switch off, the ladder works, red switch on, the structured text works, and this will disable each other as you change that input value. Now, for our ladder logic, again, this is super basic. Like I told you earlier, we're using a latch and unlatch for the green light. So let's go ahead and go into ladder. So this is our ladder test program. So we're just going to need 2 rungs for this one and a couple of normally open contacts or XICs. And then remember how we did our aliasing. So for this one, we're going to use green push button 1 and green push button 2. For those of you who are not familiar with the trainer, it's the 1769 green push button and the 1734 green push button. I numbered them from left to right. So we'll just use green PB. Now notice how it aliased in with the address, and then green PB2, enter, and it aliased in with the address. So green push button 1 and green push button 2. So we're going to use our latch over here to turn on the green light D00. So remember D0 or DO0. I always get that mixed up. I figured that would pop up for me. But let's go ahead and do just green light. Oh, I didn't put the D00 on the green light. Sorry about that. I did it in the description. So green light, and then we're going to do the same thing down here, but it's going to be an unlatch. So green push button is going to turn on the green light, and then green push button 2 is going to turn it off. And those are both momentary push buttons. So that's why we're using latches and unlatches. So again, here we are. We are complete with this program now. So we have the ladder logic version done. So super simple. You're using a momentary push button to turn on the green light, and then you're using a different momentary push button to turn it off. So it will stay on until you push green push button 2. So how are we going to do this in structured text? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you think. Any of you that have any type of computer programming experience, or if you've taken any C programming or Visual Basic programming, will probably have an easy time with this. Also, if you have significant experience programming robots, I think you would catch on to this pretty easily, because you use a lot of ifs, a lot of thens, a lot of if then else, and if statements. So all structured text is it's based off of C programming. It's just written a proprietary way for these type of controllers. So this is what your structured text screen will look like. Notice it has a 1 there, much like a PowerShell or a Bloodshed programming software would have. But so remember, what we're going to do with this one is we want it to do the same thing as our ladder logic does. So we want the green push button to turn on the green light, and we want green push button 2 to turn it off. So back to our structured text section over here. So all we're going to do is we're going to use if, then, and end if statements to make this happen. So with structured text, how we have to do is we have to set our conditions. So we're going to do if, and then obviously space to finalize that. As long as it's blue, you're in good shape. And then we're going to use green push button. Now, this is why we do aliasing in structure, especially for structured text, because it's going to make it so much easier. So we're going to do if green, and notice how this stuff pops up. We're just going to select green push button, because green push button 1 is going to turn it on. And then space, then, and then just hit enter twice. And then this will pop up and bring you down to line 2. And it does these in order. So notice how you're starting in the middle. That's fine, because we're saying if green push button, it implies that if green push button is on. So that is implied in the programming with an if then statement. So if green push button is on, then we want the green light to be on, correct? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to type in green light, and then you have to set it to a condition of on. So if green push button is on, then green light is on. But how we're going to do that, we need to have an end to the line of code, because this is a continuation from the if line. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a space, and we're going to set the green light to 1. How you do this in structured text is you use a colon and then an equal sign. And what this is telling us is we're going to set it to either on or off. And we put a space after the equal sign. Remember, in Boolean logic, 1 is on and 0 is off, but we want it to be on. So colon equal sign is short for set. We're setting the green light to 1, which is on. And then you end every line of code or every section of code with a semicolon. And like I said, so if green push button is on, that's implied, then green light is set to 1. So our green light will turn on. Go ahead and hit enter, and I'm just going to hit backspace, because I'm just going to type end if, and then I can select it here or just type it out, and then semicolon. So we're ending that section of code if our green push button is pressed, green light is on, and then we're going to end if. We're ending that line of code. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to hit enter twice. So now if I did this program as written and I finalized everything and went online, if I hit the green push button, the green light would turn on, and then nothing else would happen, because I don't have anything set to turn it off. And again, syntax is important on here. You do have to spell things right and everything. It really doesn't care about capital or lowercase in the if, then, or end if functions, but I just make everything lowercase. It's easier on me, and it's standardized. So now we need to set the condition. This is basically the same thing as our first ladder rung. If green push button is pressed, green light turns on. So now we need to do if green push button 2 is pressed, green light turns off. So it's almost exactly the opposite of this. Instead of using green push button in that first line, we're going to use green push button 2. And then we're going to do the same thing as the second line, except we're going to set it equal to 0. So we're going to do if green push button 2, then enter. And then we're going to set green light, space, colon, equal sign, space, 0, semicolon. Then we're going to hit enter. I hit backspace because I'll just bring it over, and then do end if, semicolon. And that is the end of our program. Nice and simple. So if green push button is pressed, then green light turns on. You set it equal to 1. Then the end if, semicolon, ends that section of code. Then secondly, if green push button 2 is pressed, then green light is set to 0. End if, done. This structured text here is the exact same thing as our ladder logic program here, but we just did it in structured text format. So in main routine, we can switch between them and it will run the exact same. So let's go ahead and download this to the controller. Remember, we're offline, so we made a bunch of changes. We aliased some things, built 2 new routines. So we need to download all of our changes to the PLC. So go ahead and click the download button. This is probably going to take a minute because we made a lot of changes. So go ahead and hit download. It's going through and adding everything in, all of our aliases, our ladder logic, and our structured text. Finalizing. Do we want to change it back to run? Sure, why not? All right, so now by default, you can see here our red switch. Blow this up just a hair. So this is our final result here. So our red switch is off, so our ladder test is enabled. If I turn my red switch, now our structured text is enabled. But we're going to go back to the ladder logic for right now. So we're here, blow that up a little bit for you. And our ladder logic is enabled because that's the subroutine that's enabled by our red switch being off. So I'm going to press green push button. And you'll notice that we are on. We are latched on because I pressed the green push button. Now, if I push green push button 2, we unlatched. So latch with green push button, unlatch with green PB2. Show you one more time, press the green push button. We latched on, press green push button 2, we latched off, so we unlatched. Now, structured text is the exact same thing. So we'll go back into our main routine and I'm going to flip my red switch over to on. And now our ladder is disabled, so it will not be working. I mean, it'll still technically work because the structured text is doing the same thing. But now if I press my green push button, it is on. Again, you can't see that actively in structured text, but I can tell you that it's on. And now I'm pushing green push button 2. And now we've turned off and we verified it has worked. So I'm going to leave the main routine alone to show you that structured text is still enabled and it did work. But to show you live on the tag side of things, if I go into the controller tags and go into monitor, and then down here, you can see your green push button 1, green push button 2, and your green light, which is what we're monitoring. I'm going to go ahead and push my green push button. Notice green light is on. It's a 1. So now if I push the second green push button 2, you'll see this turn to a 1 and that turn to a 0. And now our green light is 0. So we just verified that the structured text is working as written. So again, for a closer look, if green push button is on, it's implied, then green light is set to 1, end if. If green push button 2 implied on, then green light is set to 0, end if. Ladder logic, green push button, latch on, green push button 2, unlatch. And then main routine, we just use the selector switch to switch between the 2 of them. but it really makes no difference because of both of them do the same thing. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, at the beginning, I showed you how to alias your controller tags with names. Makes it a ton easier in structured text. It also makes it easier in ladder logic, but I don't really like to show you guys that until we move on to that next level and all the basics have a firm grasp, or you guys have a firm grasp on the basics. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. I hope this information's been helpful, and I'll see you guys on the next one.